This is BBC News. I'm Duncan Golostani at Top Stories. In Hawaii, en route to Asia, memories of American wartime losses for President Trump. While thousands protest in Catalonia, Belgium receives an arrest warrant for the independence leader Carles Puigdemont. Spared jail by a military judge, the American soldier who abandoned his post in Afghanistan. And police in New York say they have a viable case against the disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. Hello, welcome to the programme. President Trump has arrived in Hawaii as he makes his way to a tour of Asia. With tensions in the region simmering, not least over North Korea, the world is watching to see how Mr. Trump handles this round of diplomacy. On his first stop, the President and First Lady visited a US battleship sunk by Japanese bombers before laying a wreath at the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor. After travelling to Tokyo on Sunday, it's on to South Korea, followed by China, then Vietnam. Mr. Trump will round things off with a visit to the Philippines. Stephen McDonnell is in Tokyo for us. He says the President's tour has had quite a sombre start in Hawaii.
Here on the streets of Tokyo, people are expecting Donald Trump's visit, when he finally gets here, to be completely dominated by these security questions around North Korea's nuclear weapons program. But on his way to Asia, Donald Trump has stopped off in Hawaii and visited Pearl Harbor. Specifically, he's been to the site of the USS Arizona for a wreath-laying ceremony, and US presidents tend to do this on their way to Japan. But crucially in Hawaii, he's also received a briefing there from the US Pacific Command. Now, I think no prizes for guessing what they'd be talking about, and it's North Korea and its nuclear weapons.
Yes, and he's on his way, isn't he, to two countries particularly nervous about developments in North Korea.
That's right, and when he arrives here in Japan and also South Korea, Donald Trump will be speaking to US troops. He's going to two different bases, then he's going to be speaking to the governments here, trying to build momentum to put more pressure on North Korea to get them to somehow give up their nuclear weapons. Now, this, of course, also involves Beijing. Some have said that Beijing needs to do more to try and force the hand of North Korea. But on his way here, Donald Trump actually praised his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, saying he's done a pretty terrific job so far. So he's not going to be doing anything to try and jeopardize this coalition he's trying to build around North Korea. And there's little doubt in anyone's mind that throughout Asia, that's really what they're going to be talking about, although it's hard to see where the answers are in terms of getting North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons, given that it seems so determined to have this nuclear deterrent against the US specifically.
Stephen McDonnell in Tokyo reporting. A Spanish judge has issued an international arrest warrant for the ousted Catalan leader Carles Puigdemont and four other ex-ministers. It follows the disputed independence referendum for the Catalan region, which the Spanish government declared illegal. Mr. Puigdemont, who's in Belgium, has insisted he's not there to evade justice. Tom Burridge reports.
Another night, another protest. This time calls for Catalan politicians to be released.
These prisoners they didn't commit any crime.
They take them to jail, they should take us to jail too. We only want to vote and to be free.
Catalonia's former government, which they elected, is accused of rebellion. 8 former Catalan ministers will spend the weekend in prison after a judge denied them bail. And now, an arrest warrant for the former Catalan president, Carles Puigdemont. He's in Brussels. Tonight on Belgian TV, he described the case against him and his colleagues as exceptional and wrong.
This is not normal that we face up to 30 years in prison. 30 years because we respected the wishes of the electorate. This is not normal. It is extremely barbaric.
And And in sleepy Catalan villages, divisions are now often on public display. The abuse hurled at Jordi, a pro-independence councillor. At the local school, where a month ago he, arms crossed at the front, led a human wall blocking Spain's civil guard. It's because of disputed referendum that his political leaders are now in jail ahead of their trial.
It reminds me more of a repressive state like Turkey than a country of the European Union.
Lively discussions at home too. This family split on that key question.
Who is in favour of independence for Catalonia?
His sister is, his mum and dad are wavering. But Jordi is not.
Las leyes se tienen que cumplir.
Spain's laws have to be followed, he tells me, and those who don't should be prosecuted. Almost every day, a new chapter in this Catalan crisis. On the horizon now, regional elections. But with pro-independence leaders in jail, divisions below the surface are ever more entrenched. Tom Burridge, BBC News in Barcelona.
OK, let's take a look at some more stories making the news now. And the so-called Islamic State has lost control of its two remaining strongholds in Iraq and Syria. The Syrian army says it has taken back the city of Deir al-Zur, while the Iraqi town of Al-Qaim has been captured by government forces. Iraqi soldiers say they have also driven IS from the last border post it held between the two countries. Malta has observed a day of mourning for the funeral of the murdered anti-corruption campaigner Daphne Caruana Galizia. The blogger, who had made allegations of corruption against leading politicians, was killed by a car bomb last month. The French footballer Patrice Evra, who plays for Marseille, has been suspended after he kicked one of his own fans. The France international, who was a substitute in a Europa League game in Portugal, was sent off after he aimed a kick at the head of one of his club supporters before the match had even started. European football's governing body, UEFA, has charged Evra with violent conduct. The US soldier, Bo Bergdahl, who pleaded guilty to abandoning his post while serving in Afghanistan, has been spared a jail sentence by a military judge. Bergdahl has instead been given a dishonourable discharge, had his rank reduced to private, and will have to pay a $10,000 fine. President Trump, who had previously suggested that Bergdahl should be executed, reacted immediately on Twitter, calling the sentence a complete and total disgrace to our country and to our military. During the trial, Bergdahl's lawyers argued that he had several mental health conditions and should not face prison. His lawyer, Eugene Fidel, spoke to reporters outside the court.
In American society as a whole, we're not at the point yet where all stigma that has traditionally attached to mental hygiene or mental health issues has been dissipated. If this case leads to renewed attention to that, that will be a really wonderful byproduct, won't it?
Earlier, I spoke to George Foley, editor of the Idaho Mountain Express. He's in Ketchum, Idaho, which is about 10 miles away from Bo Bergdahl's hometown of Haley. I asked him whether there was any sympathy for Bergdahl closer to home.
I think there is some. There is certainly a faction of people here, and I think across the country, who are angry at the sentence and feel that justice may not have been served. But in this community here, we have gotten some comments and feelings of sympathy for Bo Bergdahl. And I think perhaps maybe those people aren't quite as vocal as the others.
Greg, you've been following this story for a long time. How has opinion changed over the years?
Well, we have seen a little bit of a shift. At times it's hard to gauge, but when Bo Bergdahl was in captivity with the Haqqani network in Pakistan, there was very wide support for him here, and there were community rallies, there were bumper stickers that said "Bring Bo home," there were posters. There were yellow ribbons around some of the trees and fences in our valley. And that seemed to shift a little bit when he was released and it was revealed that he had deserted his post.
Yeah, much of that campaigning that you're talking about, of course, was led by Bo Bogdal's parents. Have they been visible over the last year or two since he came home?
They haven't been very visible at all. They don't seem to be taking many calls or interviews with the media. I did